Show and your host, Jim Black.
Hey! Thank you. And here they are. Good luck, gentlemen. Well, let's see. Bachelor number one is a successful photographer who got his start when his father found him in the dark room at the age of 13, fully developed. Between takes, he might find him skydiving or motorcycling. Please welcome Rodney Alcala. Rod, welcome.
When you're talking about a guy like that, who is hunting through Southern California, looking for people to kill because he enjoys it, he gets off on the infliction of pain on other people.
We're gonna have a great time together, Cheryl.
Rodney Alcala is accused in the murder of a 12-year-old girl, and here's his defense. A 1978 YouTube clip from an episode of The Dating Game.
Bachelor number one.
Yes.
What's your best time?
The best time is at nighttime,
Why do you say that?
because that's the only time there is.
The only time? What's wrong with morning, afternoon?
Well, they're okay, but nighttime's when it really gets good. Then you're really ready.
Alcala's been behind bars for 30 years. He was sentenced to death twice for the murder of Robin Samso. She was just 12 years old when she was kidnapped and killed June 20th, 1979, and her body was found not far from Alcala's home. But again, both verdicts were later overturned. Now in his third trial, Alcala wants to prove that he wore a certain pair of gold earrings underneath his 70s style haircut. The earrings are key to the prosecution's case.
Well, I like bananas, so I'll take one.
Number one. That's your number one. All right.
Rodney, I hope you don't sleep at night. I hope you have dreams of us coming after you. Because if there is a heaven and a justice, that's what I'm gonna do when I die, is haunt your dreams.
I suspect it's a blessing that your mother is not here today to witness this. I feel sure she died with a broken heart.
Hello and welcome to I Could Murder a Podcast. I'm your host, Tom Norris, and I'm joined by contestant number one. Tell us your name and something fun about yourself.
Hello, my name's Dan Lambert, and I like to ride on two wheels.
Oh, maybe that's two unicycles stapled together. And contestant number two, what's your name? And tell us a fun fact about you.
My name is Ben, and I haven't paid my TV licence yet.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
I don't pay my TV licence ever.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You two are both.
Getting a few letters at the moment, but...
Do you not watch The Traitors? I love The Traitors.
Parents love it. They've told me to watch it. I haven't got a licence, so I can't watch it.
That doesn't stop me, does it? Yes, welcome to a brand new case of I Could Murder a Podcast. And Ben, people probably have twigged from the intro, but can you tell everyone what today's case is?
I can indeed. So this week it is episode 4 of series 11, the case of Rodney Alcala, also known as the Dating Game Killer, Dating Death, the Rodney Alcala murders, the mysterious case of John Berger, Rodney Alcala, the Killing Game, and there are a few different cryptic clues from last week, all of them a struggle. I think we ended up with going with one of the Trotters forts. Trotters, Del and Rodney. Forts is Alcala. I believe there's some sort of Spanish connotation for fort is Alcala. My other one was Cilla Black wouldn't have him back, and it rhymed, and she wouldn't. Well, she might actually. I've heard some spiteful stories about that lady.
Really?
Yeah, but she sat on a table. Isn't there a photo of her sitting on a family's reserved table in a pub? And there's just a photo of her staring at the man that took a photo of her saying, "She sat at my reserved table." And yeah, a lot of people wishing her unwell as a result of that.
I mean,
Wouldn't speak ill of the dead.
Cilla Black wouldn't have him back. Did you say that last week?
Yeah, it got knocked away straight away.
Oh, sorry about that. It's not bad, to be fair now.
I think he's shined up a bit and finessed it a little bit because it wasn't quite that.
I've
but
copied it from the document. Yeah. It was at the end of the episode, wasn't it, when I shared them and we were tired.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I quite enjoyed that second one. Still don't like the first one.
Yeah,
that's okay. The one we agreed on.
No, the second one you agreed on it.
Oh, I don't know. The other one was Del Boy doesn't like his newly decorated flat. Which was, Rodney, put back the old colour.
Yeah,
Rodney old colour.
That's definitely the one we cold.
That got cold, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, super fascinating case this week. As Tom said, loads of people have requested it. Not only was Rodney Alcala very famous for his appearance as the winner of an episode of The Dating Game, but he also came runner-up in the I Could Murder podcast Series 9 audience vote, got pipped to the post by Peter Tobin. Which I remember, because we do an audience vote every series, I have a little look at the cases to see how, we've got a shorter turnaround time for those. And I remember having a little look at Rodney Alcala and thinking, oh, that's bad. But now that I've had a really big look, it's really fucking bad. This is an awful case, just a little warning early on. And it reminded me how flexible the probation services were in America during the 70s and the late 60s. Very flex. It's kind of like, yeah, go on. Don't do it again. See you later.
This case has got a bit more notoriety because he appeared on that show, and I thought after the show he might have gone on to commit a murder after the show, and that was basically it, but they hyped it all up because it was on The Dating Game. But there's so much more to the case, so many more crimes that happened pre that and after that. It's a very interesting one. It's a lot darker than I knew, and I can see why so many people were voting for it. So it's a very intense case. It seemed to be a man clambering for infamy, and we're going to go into it.
Early morning, September 25th, 1968, Sunset Boulevard, Hollywood. 8-year-old Talia Shapiro makes her way to school amidst the bustling summer streets of Los Angeles. As the second grader skips along the footpath, a beige car without number plates deviates from the gridlocked traffic and slowly pulls up beside her. The figure within the car is dark, tall and slender, and stares at Talia with a disturbing smile. "Do you need a ride to school?" the stranger asks. Talia declines the man's offer and continues about her day. The stranger slowly follows. "I'm a friend of your parents," he says, maintaining his smile. This changes everything. Talia's parents, both popular people in the music business, had a great number of friends. She was sure the stranger must have been one of them, and so she got in the back of the car. "I'm a photographer." The stranger continued as he slowly drove the 8-year-old away from her school and her protecting public. "I have a beautiful poster in my house that I want to show you. I can show you before you start school." The eerie man then drives to a nearby Hollywood hotel, his eyes completely fixated on the young girl. He parks up and guides the girl into his hotel room, and as soon as Talia enters the room, everything immediately fades to black. In plain sight, she had just become another victim of 25-year-old Rodney Alcala, a serial killer and sex offender who, after over a decade of horrifying a nation, would become globally known as the Dating Game Killer. And much more madness, mayhem and murder would follow. What failures in the justice system allowed Alcala to evade detection for so long? How did Alcala's ability to present a seemingly normal or even attractive persona impact both his ability to lure victims and the scope of the investigation? Why was Alcala driven to commit such heinous and barbaric crimes despite such a promising start to his life? And when were investigators finally able to link dozens of different patterns, incidents and testimonies to that of the Dating Game Killer?
Yeah, as Tom said, there's a lot more to this case that meets the eye. It isn't just a guy that happened to be on a dating show. He appeared on that show at the peak of his criminal spree, and a despicable criminal spree it was. There are some really, really horrific elements of this case. So what we're going to do is go into the background of Rodney Alcala before moving on to the timeline of events. Rodney James Alcala was born Rodrigo Jacques Alcala Bucor on the 23rd of August 1943 in the city of San Antonio, Texas. The city, of course, holds the Latin motto of Libertatis Connubilia. That's how I speak in Latin. Libertatis Connubilia.
Sounds very offensive to me.
Libertatis Connubilia.
Plays for Wolves, doesn't he?
Let's just get a proper one for you, because we got a lot of stick for cum laude. I don't think so. The city, of course, holds the Latin motto of Liberati Conabula, Latin, which translates to Cradle of Freedom, whilst its unofficial motto is Keep San Antonio Lame, which I had a little look at that because that caught my eye. Cheeky little play on the slogan of its northern neighbour, the city of Austin, whose motto is Keep Austin Weird. San Antonians apparently use this motto in order to protect the city's quaint charm and apparently to prevent too many tourists from visiting. The more you guys know. Rodney was the third of 4 children born to Mexican-American parents, Raul Alcala Bucor and Ana Maria Gutierrez, having an older and younger sister, Christine and Marie, as well as an older brother called Raul Jr. Though there is not a great deal of information available about his parents and his upbringing, it is known that the home environment was turbulent and challenging for Alcala from a very early age. His parents struggled financially, and it is speculated that his father, Raul Sr., was both a heavy alcoholic as well as an abuser, who was regularly violent to his wife and 4 children. In 1951, when Alcala was just 8 years old, his father Raul moved the family from America to a remote village in rural Mexico. However, after just 2.5 years of relocating his wife and children to his homeland, Raul cut off ties with all of them and completely abandoned his family.
And ruined the ties.
Apparently, Anna woke one morning to see that Raul had gone, and after some digging with friends and family, she had to inform her young children that their father would not be coming back. An infant Alcala reluctantly became the man of the house as a result. In 1954, to cope with the challenges of being a single mother, Anna returned to America with her children in search for better opportunities, and they eventually settled in a suburb of Los Angeles called Monterey Park.
Ooh, isn't Monterey cheese a thing, Ben?
Monterey Jack.
Isn't it?
Monterey.
Maybe I'm making
Is it a fish?
I think it is a cheese.
Yeah, Monterey
Style
Jack
of
cheese.
Yeah.
Yeah, lovely American cheese.
Monterey Jack, sometimes shortened to Jack, is a Californian white semi-hard cheese made using cow's milk with mild flavour and slight sweetness.
And there's also a Monterey fish market, which...
Manta ray is a fish.
Manta-ray, yes, you're right.
Fucking hell.
Monterey fish market is real though, Dan. Before I didn't...
I mean, there's a fish market in most places.
Yeah. Monterey is the same spelling.
Despite the turbulence of his childhood, Alcala settled well in LA, at school he was described as a gifted, intelligent, creative and popular student who was well liked by his classmates and teachers. His mother took on a part-time job at a local supermarket whilst also receiving welfare as a single parent. And she did her best, together with the help of her parents, to raise and support her 4 children. Without knowing exactly how it was funded, Alcala eventually went on to be accepted into a local Roman Catholic private school, Campwell Sacred Heart of Mary High School, where he continued to excel in his studies and encountered no issues, the likes of which we often see, relating to bullying or social difficulties. Here he reportedly had an IQ in the gifted range and showed a great deal of promise. His intelligence is something some people really make a big thing about, saying that he was really intelligent, and other people argue against it, saying a lot of things he does, which we'll get into obviously, show either a lack of intelligence or kind of wanting to be caught.
Arrogance.
Yeah.
I mean, we're going to go on to make a point about his intelligence, but I guess I completely agree. He's compared to Bundy quite a lot. But I feel like Bundy would have wiped the floor with him.
Oh,
that's a personal opinion.
Interesting.
But he does meet, as Tom said, we'll go into it. There are some elements where it's not very sophisticated. He seems to, once he gets his MO in place, I think he just gets arrogant towards the end.
A bit of a rogue shout, but do you think Alcala looks a little bit like Bundy? Maybe if Bundy had a brother that played the drums. He's got a similar-ish kind of face. If you were to cut Alcala's hair short, I think he wouldn't look crazily different.
That's not bad, actually.
That's completely fair. I could see them in a band.
The Bundys.
Hey, it's the Bundys.
Alcala la 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 la. Bundy. Yeah. As well as this, Alcala was made a member of the school's athletics team, being a particularly good cross-country runner. Another big claim, I think a lot of people we've covered, if they are into sports, tends to be running. Shipman, that's all I've got. Shipman. There's someone else I remember being a runner.
Menendez, tennis. Famously
I guess you run around the court.
Menendez brothers. I'm trying to think of other sporty ones. Bundy played a little bit of football, didn't he? Or was it also
was
tennis?
known to wrestle.
OJ.
Yeah, OJ. Yeah, maybe it's just a bad shout. He was also added to the school's yearbook planning committee, where he formed a special interest in photography. This, combined with his interest in art, marked somewhat of a turning point in his adolescence, with his creative pursuits becoming a significant part of his identity. It also provided him with tools and opportunities that he would later exploit, using his charm and artistic talents to lure prospective victims later in life. More on this shortly. District Attorney and ABC News contributor Matt Murphy wrote the following on Rodney's upbringing.
Rodney Alcala had every advantage that somebody could have in life. He had a mother who loved him, which is a big deal psychologically. He had friends. He had a brother and sisters who all turned out to be very successful. And then he joined the army, and that's where all the trouble began. He started to get nightmarish urges that he refused to ignore.
I think it's probably better not to ignore them. If you start getting them, but maybe talk to someone.
Definitely.
Rather than act upon them.
Talk about it.
Always talk about it.
But don't ignore it. Don't swallow it down and calcify it, because one day it will come a-creeping.
Nightmarish urges. It's fun to say. It makes your mouth.
It's not. Nightmarish urges. No.
Nightmarish urges.
Too many shishes. In 1961, after graduating from high school at the age of 17, Alcala made the decision to enlist in the US Army. He served as a clerk for the following 4 years in Fort Bragg, North Carolina, with the ultimate ambition of becoming a paratrooper. Now that's cool. The paratrooper bit is really cool.
Yeah.
I'd love to do that.
Over Christmas, I rewatched The Band of Brothers.
Oh, never seen it, as usual. Sorry.
Oh,
Ross, I can't
Dan.
eat that spaghetti. I'm so full, Ross. No, you've got to eat the spaghetti.
Yeah, he is very good in that. Very good.
David Schwimmer.
You would love it, Dan.
Oh,
You would
Dan,
love
you'd
it.
be all over that.
Yeah, I hear good things about it all the time.
Maybe we could watch it together.
Please.
Me and you.
It was implied.
Nice shirt, Tom. This was his first experience of life away from
Nice
the...
shirt, Tom.
Fuck. Oh, no way. That's uncalled for.
Charter shirt, isn't it?
Oh, your shirt is the one from the shoot too.
Shoot, yeah. Get the money out of it.
Brilliant.
Get the money out of it.
Get the money out
business.
of it.
Get money
Squeeze
out
it
of it.
out
Take
of it.
cash point. Can I have some money or a shirt out of it?
Let's continue.
This was his first experience of life away from the family home. And, being in an all-male environment at the time, it was vastly different from what he was used to. He did not take well to orders, and didn't seem to recognise his superior's authority. In fact, during his time with the army, his commanding officers had to reprimand and discipline him on several occasions, and they stated that he demonstrated the traits of being manipulative, vindictive, and insubordinate. He was observed to being emotionally distant, lacking empathy, and also struggled to form any meaningful connections with others. In terms of his reprimands, it is stated that these issues stem from a series of reports that he had physically and sexually assaulted numerous local young women whilst on base leave. However, no further criminal action was taken against these complaints, and no further investigations were launched. One of these instances, including smashing a Coca-Cola bottle over a woman's head whilst on leave in New York during the summer of 1963. The following year, in 1964, shortly before his 21st birthday, Alcala suffered what had been described as a nervous breakdown amidst allegations of sexual misconduct from other members at the base. He went AWOL as a result and managed to hitchhike 2,550 miles across the country from Fort Bragg back to his mother's home in Los Angeles.
Yeah, it's quite the journey, especially if you're hitchhiking. Probably take obviously a lot longer.
2,500. That's 5 times the amount the Proclaimers were willing to walk with you.
Yes.
Lady.
Just to be the man that had an alleged nervous breakdown. And also did some really awful things.
Yeah, I'll concentrate on that.
Yeah. Once military personnel were able to locate him, Alcala was scheduled for several meetings with a military psychiatrist and other medical professionals. After a number of meetings had taken place, he was diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder and given a general discharge from the army as a result, meaning that nothing went on his record. It was noted by the evaluating psychiatrist that Alcala had an estimated IQ of 135, and I've seen other articles that state perhaps it was even as high as 160. As a bit of a benchmark, though obviously the scales can change over time, we've been through this before.
They do change.
Matt Damon, Nicole Kidman and Arnold Schwarzenegger are claimed to have an IQ also of 135, with Donald Trump allegedly being 156, Lady Gaga 166, and Rowan Atkinson, globally known as Mr. Bean, having an IQ of 178.
That makes sense.
Big scale.
That's the thing, it's hard to quantify his IQ in that time to modern day, isn't it? Because even the tests will be different with themselves, so...
After being discharged from the military, Alcala started studying at the University of California's School of Arts and Architecture. After graduating with a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree in 1968 at the age of 24, he then allegedly went on to attend film school under renowned director Roman Polanski at New York University.
And Ben Polanski, he's linked to another case we've done, isn't he?
He is. He is old Charles Manson. His partner,
young wife. Was killed. His young pregnant wife was killed by Manson's... What are they called? The group?
Family.
Yeah, Manson's family killed Roman Polanski's young pregnant wife in that tragic case.
Well, and there's some other controversies associated with Polanski.
He's quite a,
Roman Polanski sexual abuse case.
Problematic figure, yeah, definitely.
Oh, yes. We'll read up on that later.
That sounds like that.
Not a great deal of information is known about Alcala during his early and mid-20s, though it is clear that he travelled around the country a great deal and lived in numerous different residences. His contact with his family slowly started to dwindle, and he became more and more isolated over time. During this time, Alcala began to exhibit increasingly erratic and deceptive tendencies. Whilst pursuing his studies, he would present himself as a charming, intelligent and cultured individual, who was an up-and-coming photographer. He would also introduce himself to different groups of people with a different name and backstory. However, beneath the surface, there was a growing psychological instability, a lingering sense of aggression, and a number of far darker urges. By the time that Alcala reached 25, all of the tendencies that he had managed to keep somewhat hidden had started to boil over. The narcissism, the lack of empathy, the manipulation, the sexual frustration, and the need for power and control had all paved the way for the horrific series of violent crimes that he would soon start to commit. And it is here that we move to the timeline of Rodney Alcala, the dating game killer.
July of 1968. 16-year-old Morgan Rowan was attending a going-away party on Sunset Strip at a nightclub for teenagers. Morgan and her family were relocating to New York 4 days later, and so she wanted the chance to enjoy one of her last nights in LA together with her close friends. As the party went on, Morgan noticed a tall and slender, long-haired man enter the club. She felt like she knew the man. She felt like she had seen him somewhere before, and she suddenly became overwhelmed with fear. This was a man who she encountered 3 years ago in the parking lot of the exact same club. It was 1965, and Rodney Alcala was 22. The pair had been looking at one another in the club for almost an hour, before eventually introducing themselves to one another and going outside to talk. Once in the car park, she saw a very different side of Rodney. He grabbed her by the arm and dragged her to a nearby alleyway, where he proceeded to smash her head against the wall and place a dumpster on top of her. Though her memory of this occasion was hazy, she remembered the following.
I think he slammed my head into the wall because I was unconscious. When I woke up, I remember feeling something on my chest. It was a large industrial dumpster that he'd pushed against me. I screamed for help, and the owner of the club and his wife came out and helped me get out from behind the dumpster and gave me ice for my head. After that incident, I avoided that strange man for the next 3 years, but I bumped into him again in 1968.
On that particular night, Alcala offered Morgan and a friend some marijuana and also offered them a ride around Sunset Strip in his car. Not knowing what he'd done to Morgan previously, the group agreed. He claimed to be driving them to a local IHOP, but instead took the group to his apartment. Here, he gave them more drugs and let them play loud music in his living room. He then, once again, took Morgan by the arm and dragged her upstairs to his bedroom. He locked the bedroom door before proceeding to physically and sexually assault Morgan.
He took his belt off and wrapped it around his fist. I tried to be brave and said, "No, you can't keep me here." And he just punched me between the eyes as hard as he could. He had a knife and cut the tie of my blouse around my neck, nicking my skin. I could feel blood start to flow down my chest, and I remember thinking, he cut my neck, I'm going to die. His face was red and swollen. His eyes were glassy. He was out of control, like an animal. I wanted it to be over. I wasn't praying to live, I was praying to die.
Fortunately, after noticing she had been missing for almost an hour, Morgan's friends began knocking on the bedroom door. As the knocks went unanswered, her friend Mike ended up kicking the door down, where Alcala was observed putting a fresh t-shirt over his blood-covered body. The group quickly grabbed Morgan and fled the scene after hearing Alcala say, "Take her." Don't know why I said like that. Take her.
Suki.
To the well.
Due to the fears of their parents finding out they had been drinking and doing drugs, the incident went unreported for the next 53 years. Morgan Rowan would inform investigators of her 2 encounters with Alcala when she was 68 years old.
Wow.
Very easy to think here, why did she go back in the car? Why didn't she report it? But, we've said this a million times in every other, people deal with these kind of things differently, you know, trying to suppress it, trying to not remember such heinous things. But it is intriguing. Maybe she didn't want to lose face in front of her friends. Maybe she hadn't told her friends about this incident and she didn't want to draw attention to what happened to her previously, so she went along with it because her friends wanted to go along with it. But yeah, truly horrific and horrible incident.
I mean, as well, there's because it was this is the mid 60s, is it? Late 60s. As well, there's a chance she might have thought, oh no, maybe, I mean, he looks similar, but maybe it's not the same guy. I'll get in the car. You know, a lot of guys did look like Alcala at that time. He wasn't. I mean, he was kind of distinctive looking, but yeah, it's a horrible series of events.
As well, I mean, she got hit around the head. Like, her memory from that incident might not be as clear, and you know, she might even think if it was the same guy, he wouldn't be approaching and talking to all of us. Yeah.
Early morning, September 25th, 1968. 2 months later, as producer Dan described at the start of the episode,
no worries.
8-year-old. This is bad. Early morning, September 25th, 1968. 2 months later, as producer Dan described at the start of the episode, 8-year-old Tali Shapiro was making her way to school along Sunset Boulevard, and this was when a car slowly pulled up beside her. Tali had left the Chateau Marmont Hotel on 8221 Sunset Boulevard that morning, where her family were temporarily living due to home renovations. She was wearing a summer dress that her grandma had crocheted for her, and was almost halfway to school when the car pulled up alongside her. The stranger in the car was 25-year-old Rodney Alcala, and apparently he had woken up that morning with uncontrollable urges. Alcala starts by offering Tali a ride to school, however, she refuses his offer and informs him that she does not talk to strangers. As she continues with her journey, Alcala quickly blurts out that he is a friend of her parents, meaning that they are no longer strangers. At the time, it was not unusual for Tali's parents to have dozens of friends come and go from the family home, and this was down to her father's role as a music executive. So she actually went on to describe the family home as being like Grand Central Station.
Loads of trains.
Yeah, loads of people coming and going.
Trains.
This was mainly due to the fact that her father was a high-ranking music executive who had worked with stars like Jim Morrison, Lenny Bruce, and Mama Cass. In a later interview, Tali would state the following about the nightmare situation.
I remember the morning was nice and warm. He offered me a ride to school and told me he knew my parents. I really didn't want to get in the car, but I was raised to respect my elders. So I got in the car. He asked me what time I started school. He then said, "We have plenty of time." And this was regarding him being a professional photographer and wanting to show me a beautiful poster in his house before I started school. That's when I first felt danger, and that's when I wanted to jump out the car.
Alcala then started to veer further and further away from Tali's school with the second grader in the back of his car. The pair then arrived at an isolated Hollywood hotel. Alcala then guided Tali into his apartment. Before she could even start to make sense of her surroundings, Alcala struck her over the back of the head with a steel pipe. Despicably, he then proceeded to rape her as she lay there bleeding, clinging on to life. Tali recalled the following.
He drove me to his house, I followed him in, and that's all I remember. There was nothing else to remember. He obviously hit me over the head right after that, and that was it.
Fortunately for Tali, another commuter had observed her getting in the back of Alcala's car several minutes earlier. This was a man by the name of Donald Haynes, and due to how uncomfortable witnessing the whole situation had made him, he made the decision to follow the car due to fears of a possible kidnapping. Donald arrived at Alcala's apartment and witnessed him ushering her inside. Not knowing if he had a gun or not, Donald ran to the nearest payphone and immediately contacted the police. Donald stated the following.
I was going along Wilshire Boulevard, coming up to Sunset Boulevard. I wanted to turn around, but this car was blocking the crosswalk. Inside was a man talking to a young girl, evidently on her way to school. He was smiling and talking to her, totally fixated on her. She got in his car. That disturbed me. All the warning signs were there.
When police arrived moments later, Officer Christopher Camacho headed straight for the front door and started knocking. A naked man opened the curtains and said that he was just in the shower and that he would be there in a moment. Officer Camacho noted the man did not have a towel and did not appear to be wet, so he immediately ordered the man to open the door. The man responded asking to be given 5 seconds to put some pants on, but then the scene fell silent. Officer Camacho then kicked the door down, where he discovered 8-year-old Tali Shapiro laying in the pool of her own blood and groaning with a steel bar across her neck. Alcala had managed to flee the scene. But the officer's quick thinking, together with the intuition of Donald Haynes, saved Tali's life. She required 27 stitches in the back of the head and was in a coma for 32 days before eventually, after months of physical therapy, making a full recovery. Officer Camacho recalled,
To the right was a dining room, to the left was a living room, and straight ahead was the kitchen. And, in there, was this little girl. Blood all over the place. Clothes, shoes, a dress thrown to one side. Coins on the floor, and she had the steel bar on her neck. And I looked at her. I thought she was dead. She wasn't breathing. There was more blood than should ever come out of an 8-year-old little girl. She suddenly started gagging. I could have chased the man, or saved her life. I decided to save her life.
While fleeing the scene so suddenly, Alcala left behind his UCLA student ID, which named him as Rodney Alcala. On top of this, once police had gotten Tali into an ambulance, a full search of the apartment uncovered hundreds of photos of young women and young boys in various states of undress and vulnerability. See, this isn't a prime example of the IQ thing. I mean, leaving his ID card, which had his actual name on it and things like that, is such a big mistake. Knowing this, Alcala made the decision to hitchhike from LA to New York in order to evade the pursuing police. This turned out to be a lucky stroke for Alcala, as investigating officers believed that he had been heading to Mexico in order to hide down with family. And so the case, as well as the investigation into Alcala, eventually went cold.
Can we also say a big props to the officer and Donald Haynes, because some officers, if they immediately assumed that that girl was dead, which he did, would have immediately chased after Alcala and just left the scene. And as well, if Donald Haynes hadn't followed, that girl would definitely have been killed, right? So that's mega props in my eyes.
Once in New York, Alcala started living on the streets of Manhattan before eventually using the alias of John Berger to enroll in film school at the University of New York. Apparently he wanted to feel like a king. We flash forward almost 3 years, and during this time, it is speculated that Alcala either laid low and kept himself out of trouble, or that he continued committing numerous other assaults. Rapes and murders have not been since conclusively linked to him. Either way, we proceed to the following date.
June 12th, 1971, evening. 23-year-old Transworld Airlines flight attendant Cornelia Crilly was found to have been raped and strangled to death in her new apartment at 427 East 83rd Street in Manhattan. She became the first confirmed murder at the hands of Rodney Alcala, who is believed to have been watching her unload various boxes and pieces of furniture into her apartment before offering to help her. Once all of these items were inside her apartment, Alcala attacked Cornelia, where he then raped her and strangled her to death with a pair of nylon stockings. She also had bite marks to her breasts. This particular murder would not have been solved for 40 years, leaving Cornelia's parents, siblings and loved ones without any kind of closure during that time. During the back end of 1971, once again using the alias of John Berger, Alcala landed a job as a counsellor at Camp New Beginnings, which was an arts camp for children by Lake Sunapee.
Yeah, you worked at summer camp once in America, didn't you?
I did. Very enjoyable time of my life, actually.
Remember seeing you climbing a tree?
Climbed many trees. And I set the record of, I had like an assault course up a tree. And I was the quickest one up there, like a monkey.
And ever since then, you've not stopped looking down at people for the rest of your life?
Too right. Slave fucks.
Why are you cutting to me?
Camp New Beginnings was an arts camp for young girls by Lake Sunapee in rural New Hampshire. Here, he had 24/7 access to girls.
Is that why you...
Don't even... Here, he had 24/7 access to girls from as young as 4 years old through to 14. In the role of a counsellor, he also had regular one-to-one access with most of the children. After just a few months of working at the camp, the FBI added Alcala to its list of 10 most wanted fugitives for the attack on 8-year-old Tali Shapiro 3 years earlier. The poster, which included 4 photos, a signature, multiple fingerprints, and the name Rod James Alcala, was labelled Wanted for Kidnapping and Rape. And 2 camp counsellors immediately recognised this individual as the same individual they believed to be John Berger after seeing the poster at a local post office.
I can imagine him walking the camp and just having his own little catchphrase. Because John Berger, John fries with that. Whenever he, they're going from the canoe and he gives them like a paddle and they're like, thanks John. He's like, John fries with that. Just like little fun little joke he had. Because his name was Berger. Didn't catch on. And kind of made me not like him much.
Alcala was immediately arrested and extradited to California. However, as the Shapiro family had relocated to Mexico through fears of other attacks in LA, they refused to allow the now 11-year-old Tali to testify at Alcala's trial, which meant that he was convicted of the lesser charge of child molestation rather than kidnapping, rape, and attempted murder. He was sentenced to serve just 3 years in prison for this conviction. What the fuck? And was even paroled 2 months early due to good behavior. So yeah, for that particular scene that we've described, pretty much 2.5 and a bit years.
2 years, 10 months, Ben, if you want to be exact.
Yeah, I'd like to be exact. 2 years and 10 months for what he did
fucking around,
to Tali Shapiro, which is, absolutely
and this
crazy.
was because they weren't residents of the USA?
They would just refuse to be at the trial. They didn't want to go through it. Any more trauma.
Oh, sorry.
They basically said, look, they said to Alcala, if you plead guilty to the lesser charge of child molestation, the trial will be a lot quicker. I remember seeing an interview with that Chris Carmacho, the officer that arrived at the house, and he was at the trial. And when they announced it was 2 years, 3-year sentence, he was bewildered by that news, which is, So he returned to the streets of LA as a free man, and at this point police and parole officers had no idea that he had already murdered at least one other person and had attacked at least one other young girl. So at this point now, he should definitely still be in prison for what he's done, but he's able to go on and commit the following actions. After less than 2 months of his release, Alcala was apprehended once more and found guilty of assaulting a 13-year-old girl referred to in court documents as Julie J. She had accepted what she believed would be a ride to school after he pulled up in his car alongside her. According to those particular court records, Alcala forced her to smoke marijuana and kissed her several times after driving her to an isolated area. In spite of what he had done, he was only found guilty of giving marijuana to a minor and violating his parole, and was released after 2 more years of indeterminate sentencing. He was released in 1977, aged 34, and he had to register as a sex offender. This is what I said at the start about the parole. He continued to escalate now, and still parole will be very flex on him, whereas in today's world, there's no chance he would be out of prison at this point.
Well, as well, it just seems like they're not going now. If you commit, you're charged with certain things. If you get charged for another thing, it's added on, and you're punished even more severely. Where there seems to be just dishing out short sentences. Yeah, it's crazy.
After his second release from prison, despite Alcala now being a registered sex offender, despite Alcala also now being highly likely to reoffend once again, and despite Alcala also being a possible flight risk, his Los Angeles parole officer made the bizarre decision to allow him to travel to the other side of the country in order to spend a week in New York. Alcala would only be in New York for 6 days until another murder in Manhattan had occurred.
July 15th, 1977, 23-year-old Ellen Jane Hover, who was the daughter of Hollywood nightclub owner Herman Hover, and also the goddaughter of singer, actor and comedian Dean Martin and Sammy Davis Jr., was last seen alive in a New York apartment, after she suddenly vanished without any kind of communication. Police asked friends and relatives for any clues that might help the investigation. It was revealed by Ellen's cousin, Sheila Whelan, that Ellen had been complaining about a New York-based photographer who had been pestering her to go for lunch with him. Ellen was regarded as an incredibly beautiful young lady who had a promising career ahead of her, either in show business or as a model, and it's a possibility that Rodney Alcala manipulated these aspirations to his advantage after somehow crossing paths with her. Investigators searched Ellen's apartment, and upon skimming through her datebook, which was left at her desk, the name John Berger was written on the last date that she was seen alive.
And it was like he was pestering her to go for lunch. He was like, let's go for some fries with Berger. Do you want fries with that? Yeah. Didn't work at the camp, Rodney. It's not going to work now.
It worked a bit better at the camp.
I don't think either worked. That wasn't the point.
No. If it's breaking an entry, it would be an In-N-Out burger.
Redemption.
That one actually did work better than anyone ever done, you know. After the NYPD made public announcements searching for a man named John Berger, New Hampshire police remembered that this was an alias that Rodney Alcala used during his brief time as a counsellor at the Children's Arts Camp, and the FBI subsequently brought him in for questioning. Despite Alcala admitting to using the alias John Berger and being at New York at the same time that Ellen Hover was found missing, nothing could be proven as there was no other evidence against him and her body had still not been found. A few months later, another aspiring model went to the police to say that a man named Berger had taken photos of Ellen around the same time that she went missing, But again, no further action could be taken against Alcala as there was no evidence to support this. He's evading well here, but also feels like the police have enough there to at least bring him for question and kind of do a thorough investigation.
In this documentary I watched, there were so many serial killers on the loose in both New York and California at this point in time. So again, Alcala's completely able to kind of fly under the radar here, even though he's told his parole officer, I'm just going to New York for a bit. And
wasn't Johnny Pitchfork or his name was around?
Johnny Pitchfork?
What's the guy's name?
Johnny
He's got
Pitchfork.
a real shitty name. It was large at the time.
I like Johnny Pitchfork. He needs a backstory. John Berger.
Burger. Fucking burgers. Get some fucking burgers. Not long after being interviewed relating to the disappearance of Alan Hoover, Alcala returned to LA where he began working as a typesetter for the Los Angeles Times. And they always love working for newspapers as well, don't they? They all like that, like being in and around it. Whilst in the role, he was once again questioned by investigators, but this time relating to the Southern California Hillside Strangler murders. Yeah, there was a short period of time where he was linked to those, but he had some solid alibis as to why he wasn't part of that. The task force interrogated Alcala, but found no evidence to suggest he was responsible or involved in these murders, and later arrested and convicted both Angelo Buono and Kenneth Bianchi for the murders of 12 females. Although Alcala was excluded as a suspect in the Strangler case, he was still apprehended and received a short prison term for the possession of marijuana. He loved the herb, Ben.
He did. Alcala did love a puff. That's just fact.
Yeah, there's a lot of lettuce in that burger. You know what I mean? During his time back in LA, Alcala tried to build a separate new life for himself. During his time back in LA, Alcala tried to build a separate new life for himself, this time as a professional photographer. Over the following months, he managed to convince hundreds, potentially thousands of young boys and girls that he was an aspiring art and fashion magazine photographer. This allowed him to take photographs of the majority of these young individuals, many of them in suggestive or semi-erotic poses, without any repercussion. A former colleague of his LA Times said the following in an interview.
When I asked why he took the photos, he said their mums asked him to. I remember the girls were naked. Many of the boys were naked too. I thought it was weird, but I was young. I didn't know anything. He said he was a professional, so in my mind, they were being models for him. November 9th, 1977. Jill Terry Barkham, an 18-year-old runaway who was originally from the city of Oneida, New York, disappeared suddenly from the streets of LA after last being seen walking along Sunset Boulevard. After her large family of 13 reported her missing, New York police initially thought that she may have fallen victim to the Son of Sam killer, whilst police in California believed she could have possibly fallen victim to the Hillside Strangler. Neither was the case. It is believed that Alcala performed his typical MO. He pulled up beside Jill and either offered her drugs, money, a roof over her head, or the opportunity to be photographed by a professional, perhaps even all four. Following this, Jill was attacked, repeatedly struck in the face, bound, raped, and strangled to death with a pair of blue rope ties. Her lifeless body was found, quote, rolled up like a ball a few days later on a service road adjacent to Mulholland Drive, near the residence of film star Marlon Brando. The more you know. The discovery of her body, which wasn't far from the Hollywood sign, caused a film shoot to come to an abrupt halt. Jill's corpse was found in a nude posed position, kneeling as though intentionally arranged. Her skull had suffered severe trauma, likely inflicted by a bloodied rock located nearby. There was also 3 bite marks on her left breast. Additionally, she had been sexually assaulted and strangled on 3 separate occasions, first with a belt, then with her tights, and finally using one of the legs of her trousers.
Yeah, I mean, that is particularly gruesome. There was one particular website, I couldn't find this information on many different sources, but there was one website that stated he got a thrill from reviving and resuscitating his victims and then strangling them again. And I couldn't find that anywhere else, but in this murder, perhaps it sounds like he either struggled or intentionally strangled her on 3 separate occasions, which is barbaric.
Yeah, it seems like he's getting the absolute most he can get from them, which is an absolutely horrifying thought.
December 16th, 1977. Just over 5 weeks later, a 27-year-old nurse by the name of Georgia Marie Wickstead was found dead in her Malibu apartment, with signs at the scene suggesting that a break and entry had occurred. Georgia was last seen the previous night when she drove a colleague home from a local bar. This was another nurse by the name of Barbara Gale. When Georgia did not show up to work the following day, Barbara immediately reported her missing, and police were sent to her apartment. Officers from Malibu Police Department arrived at Georgia's residence, where they quickly discovered indications of forced entry. As well as this, they observed a lone handprint, and there'll be a bit more on that later. Georgia was found undressed on the floor of her bedroom, having been strangled with her own nylons. Evidence at the scene suggested that she had been sexually assaulted, and her skull appeared to have been severely crushed, likely with a hammer that was located nearby. Additionally, her genitals had suffered apparent mutilations. June 15th, 1978. 6 months after the murder of Georgia Wickstead, the body of 23-year-old Ellen Jane Hover was discovered 11 months after she first disappeared. According to an article from the New York Times that was published the following day,
the skeleton, that of Ellen Jane Hover, was buried under heavy rocks on a hillside overlooking the Hudson River, about half a mile west of the Phelps Memorial Hospital in North Tarrytown, according to Detective Donald Tassick. The skeleton had been positively identified through dental records and 2 rings, an ankle bracelet, and a barrette found with the body.
A barrette is a hair clip for those that wanted or needed to know. But yeah, this discovery, obviously she was from a very prominent family. I mean, they all obviously had families, all the victims, but very affluent family. There was a lot of media surrounding her disappearance. There was suggestions that maybe the mafia were involved as well, and that perhaps a ransom would later come. But yeah, unfortunately, that was not the case. On June the 24th, 1978, the following week, 31-year-old Charlotte Lee Lamb, a legal secretary originally from Santa Monica, was found dead in the laundry room of her apartment complex in the city of El Segundo. Charlotte had been badly beaten all over her face and body. Her arms had been bound behind her back with a pair of shoelaces, and there were clear signs that she had been raped prior to her murder. DNA was left at the scene, and it appeared as though Charlotte's earrings had been removed and stolen. The earrings will come back into play.
September 13th, 1978. This is a very infamous date relating to this case. At this point, 35-year-old Rodney Alcala had been responsible for at least 5 murders and at least 2 other serious assaults on children that could be construed as attempted murder, as well as numerous, obviously we mentioned photos of underage children and possession and making children do heinous things. At the peak of his murder spree, he makes a decision to apply to be on national television and appear as a contestant on the popular game show The Dating Game, where in the UK, this is the same kind of show as Blind Date, just without Cilla Black on it.
Yes.
None of you guys have been inundated on social media now with Cilla Black doing her songs. There's a lot of covers.
No.
Oh my God. Okay, we'll put a couple.
They're bad, aren't they?
Yeah, and the videos are absolutely terrible. We'll put quick ones in here just to show you because they're worth it. She covers things like Eye of the Tiger, and then she's like, the music videos just
It's the thrill of the fight.
The effort they go into the videos, it is, wow.
It's the eye of the tiger, it's the thrill of the fight, rising up to the challenge of our rival.
Fortunately for Alcala, there was no rigorous background checks conducted, otherwise show producers likely would have discovered his criminal record. The show's host, Jim Lange, introduces contestant number 1 as follows.
Bachelor number 1 is a successful photographer who got his start when his father found him in the dark room at the age of 13, fully developed.
Oh, Jim, that's awful.
Yes.
Oh, Lange.
Yeah. Also, his father abandoned them, so don't know how. It doesn't work, does it?
Between takes, you might find him skydiving or motorcycling. Please welcome Rodney Alcala.
For anyone who doesn't know, because I know we've got some younger listeners, they're very bawdy shows, a lot of like innuendo, a lot of cheesy lines, and they like to do a little play on words.
I thought about this as well. When they say you might find him skydiving, do you think that's a throwback to his days in the military where he wanted to be a paratrooper, or does he actually regularly go skydiving?
I think Alcala's application form probably has some porky pies in it, Ben.
I'd stand by that. I'd stand by you if you were saying that.
Yeah, I don't think they've gone through his records and gone, oh, he's been in the army, let's put that in. I don't think they're going to have a clear history of it, but that could just be me. I could be wrong.
Yeah, it's really eerie. put some clips from this appearance throughout the episode, but it's perfect for obviously true crime content. He is revealed, his silhouette of him completely in darkness, and then the lights come on and he's got this really big smile on his face, and it's just, I always wonder, if you didn't know the context of him in this case, would he just appear? Because it's really sinister watching it now, and there's some particular things he says that you're like, oh, Rodney, don't say that. But if you saw it without knowing who he was or what he had done or the fact that he was a killer, would it just seem normal and harmless?
It's tricky, isn't it? I mean, those shows now they do feel very creepy. The answers feel very creepy. They feel very forward. I think in today's society, if you said any of them were sinister in any way, you could kind of play it in your head a bit. But yeah, I don't know. It's hard. It's a very bawdy show, but I will go into it. But people on the show did say they felt unnerved by him. People in the team and people who appeared on the show. So maybe there was more to it.
Yeah, the whole appearance is on YouTube, by the way. And contestant number 2 also made me feel a bit uncomfortable. He was very flirty, little kind of short guy, and very flirty.
Bachelor number 1.
Yes.
What's your best time?
The best time is at nighttime,
Why do you say that?
because that's the only time there is.
The only time? What's wrong with morning, afternoon?
Well, they're okay, but nighttime's when it really gets good. Then you're really ready.
How about you, bachelor number 2?
Right now.
Right now, anytime. Right here in front of everybody, huh?
Now's the best time.
Anytime, huh?
Wanted it right then and there in the way that he worded things.
Wow.
Weird.
Throughout the episode, which aired on the 13th of September, Rodney vies for the affections of the episode's bachelorette, Cheryl Bradshaw. He answers her first question as follows.
I am serving you for dinner.
Oh.
What are you called, and what do you look like?
I'm called the banana, and I look really good.
Can you be a little more descriptive?
Peel me.
Perhaps unsurprisingly, as all of his childhood traits suggest, Cheryl found Rodney to be charming and funny. She eventually chose him as her winner, but she refused to go on the prize-winning date with him as she found him to be creepy. Cheryl recalled the following.
He was creepy. Definitely creepy. One of the other contestants whispered to me that Rodney said, "I always get my girl," after winning. I found him to be a strange guy, and I could just not be near him.
Jed Miles, a fellow contestant on the Bachelor episode, later described Alcala as an individual with very strange traits and bizarre opinions.
So again, this article I read, which suggested that he had been also reviving, resuscitating his victims and then strangling them again, also said they believed that this moment, although he's in the height of his killing spree here, this rejection from her not to go on the date with him, and obviously it was quite public knowledge that she refused to go on the date with him, this made him very, very angry and likely spurred him to go on to do what he does next, which is a much more condensed, frequent spree. So they're suggesting that this actually really impacted him, this particular rejection.
There's a film of this with Anna Kendrick playing Cheryl, and they go into this case, and it's an interesting angle on the whole thing. But yeah, it's this is a big one, because it's like, he knows he's wanted, he knows all the crimes he's done. Him going on this feels to me like a big old, I want to be known, this is my big moment, this is how people, I've been on TV now, been charming, I've won the game show. So he's, police are after him. He's taunted them by being on the show, but being a show that is literally about people desiring him, and he's winning the affection of the person. It's the ultimate psychopathic move, and I do think he's doing this knowing that he will be caught at some point, and this is just like a big old, him just showing off essentially, and showing that he's in control in his mind.
Yeah, that, as you said at the start, Tom, it's like, when you hear of this case, the first thing you think of if you see the clip of him in this show is it either happened, he either appeared in that show and then went and did all these things, or he did all these things and then somehow went on the show. But it's right bang in the middle. And yeah, he's already killed, 5 people at this point, perhaps a lot more.
Makes him seem a lot much lighter, or the case a lot much lighter scenario. On February 14th, 1979, on Valentine's Day, on brand for the fact that we've just discussed the dating game, but not on very brand for what is about to happen. On Valentine's Day of 1979, whilst driving through Riverside County, California, 35-year-old Alcala picks up 15-year-old hitchhiker by the name of Monique Hoyt. Once again, perhaps under the offer of money, drugs, food, accommodation, or a professional photo shoot, Alcala lures her back to his apartment. Here he attacks, binds and rapes Monique, but he does not murder her. Instead, he drives to Joshua Tree, California, where he takes several photos of Monique posing in her underwear. Then he proceeds to take photos of himself sexually assaulting her once again. It's basically, Alcala took her to this location and they were all having fun and taking photos, and it was all actually relatively... He was doing what he essentially said he was going to do. It was just a photo shoot, nothing odd. And then he said, let's take some goofy photos. And then he basically said, pull your top over your head. And once she did that, he smacked her on the head. Then he would go on to bind her hands together. So this is a really interesting part of the case. And Monique is incredible in this situation. The way she deals with it at such a young age, 15 years old, being caught in the situation, I think is absolutely just how smart, how to deal with him was bang on. So after Alcala had smashed a large rock on her head and then began to sodomise her, he placed her unconscious body back in the back of the car before driving. When Monique came to, she apparently heard Alcala crying, which is very different to the Alcala in the previous attacks, as far as we're aware. And she basically, this is the bit I was amazed about, she basically said, look, let's go back to your mum's house and let's chat this through. I know this isn't what you want to do. We can sort this out, basically. And somehow she managed to talk him completely out of, his usual MO. And he seemed to think this was a good idea. And the idea was to go back to the house together. But on the way back, he pulled over to get some gas at the gas station and went to the restroom. And during which time, Monique managed to escape from the car and run to safety. Which, her quick thinking and not panicking essentially saved her life there. Shockingly, Monique managed to file a police report about the extensive ordeal she suffered at the hands of Alcala, and he was later arrested for his crimes. However, he was almost immediately released despite the severity of his actions, and the fact that it was a repeat offence after his mother posted his bail. This mistake from police officials would cost at least 2 more lives.
A trend throughout the episode, isn't it? There is very little consequences to his actions to this point, and how he's been bailed for this. Again, it's on a minor. Again, it's attempted murder, you could argue. Immediately bailed. Repeat offender, done it before, will do it again. Immediately bailed. It's mental.
June 13th, 1979. 4 months after he was released on bail, Alcala breaks into the Burbank apartment of 21-year-old computer key punch operator Jill Marie Parento. What's a computer key punch operator?
Dan, glad you asked. A computer key punch operator used a key punch machine to enter data into punched cards. Key punch operators were responsible for preparing punched cards records from coded or uncoded media.
Thank you very much.
Back to the case.
Alcala attacked Jill and repeatedly beat her before he strangled her to death whilst raping her. He then posed her naked body on the floor of the bathroom with pillows placed under her shoulders. Concerns had been raised by her colleagues after she didn't show up to work the morning after leaving early to attend a baseball game. When the police arrived at the scene, they were met by her dead body, as well as the blood of the perpetrator, who appeared to have cut themselves when crawling through a window. This DNA would later prove to be that of Rodney Alcala, and numerous friends of Jill's would inform the police and later testify in court that Jill had met Alcala on more than one occasion at a local nightclub. June 20th, 1979. A week later, 12-year-old Robin Christine Samso disappeared from her home in the seaside city of Huntington Beach, California. Robin suddenly vanished while she was riding her best friend's yellow Schwinn bicycle from her family home to a nearby ballet class. Robin had to borrow her friend's bike as she was running late for a lesson. She had agreed to answer phones at the studio in return for them, but sadly, she would never be seen alive again. A search for Robin lasted for 12 days, during which time a neighbour by the name of Jackie Young claimed that on the morning of the day that Robin disappeared, he had chased a strange-looking man away from her and her friend down by the cliffs. According to Jackie, Robin informed him that the stranger was offering them money in order to take photos of them in swimsuits. Jackie later provided a description to the police, who created a composite sketch which bore a striking resemblance to Rodney Alcala. Numerous witnesses would come forward to say that the day before Robin disappeared, a strange man was offering weed to numerous teenagers in order to take photos of them enjoying the beach. This stranger apparently pleaded to them to the point that he started begging them to participate. He too matched the description that Jackie Young had provided. Mrs. Dana Crapper, who was at the time working as a ranger for the Los Angeles National Forest, also testified that she saw a man trying to lead a girl down to a stream the same day that Robin Samsoe disappeared. She said that this man was driving a Datsun F10, which was the same make and model that Alcala owned in 1979.
Yeah, that's horror movie stuff, isn't it? And him approaching very, very young girls with his camera, trying to isolate them, trying to offer them money, drugs, food, whatever. There's a statement from this Jackie who apparently Robin fled to, and apparently as soon as Alcala saw, an older person coming towards him while he was talking to the children, he was gone. But yeah, it's just really, horror movie vibes here.
July 2nd, 1979. 12 days after she'd last been seen alive, the badly decomposed remains of 12-year-old Robin Samsoe are discovered by park ranger William Popke in Sierra Madre. He initially assumed that the remains were deer bones and threw one of the bones to his colleague, Dana Crapper, who quickly suggested otherwise. Robin's left foot and portions of her hands were missing, and her skull had been separated from her neck. A kitchen knife and one of her shoes were located nearby. The decomposition meant the investigators were initially unable to determine whether she'd been raped, but later post-mortem revealed that she'd been badly beaten and sexually assaulted. Local police began to circulate the composite sketch created for the suspect in Robin's murder, and Rodney Alcala's parole officer quickly recognised it. Later that month, Rodney Alcala was arrested and held without bail. He went on trial the following year in May of 1980 and was soon found guilty of the murder of Robin Samsoe. However, this verdict was later overturned 4 years later, and it was revealed that the jury had been improperly informed of Alcala's prior convictions. As a result, a second trial was ordered, and it followed an almost identical pattern. He was once again found guilty 2 years later in May of 1986 and was sentenced to death. During the initial 1980 trial concerning the murder of Robin Samsoe, her mother, Marianne Fraser, managed to covertly bring a pistol into the courtroom with the specific intention of using it to take Alcala's life. However, she ultimately chose not to proceed with her plan at the last moment.
Yeah, there's an interview of her. We'll get on to how Alcala behaves in later trials, but there's an interview of her saying that she had managed to get a pistol into her purse, and she went to reach into the purse and grab the pistol, but she couldn't get her hand out of her pocket because she felt a warmth suddenly surround it, and she said that she felt that was Robin stopping her from doing it.
Wow.
And now we're going to move on to a little bit of the aftermath of the case. Over the next 15 years, Alcala would file numerous appeals from death row. Eventually, in 2001, a US District Court judge overturned the second conviction and a third trial was ordered. During this time, forensic and DNA evidence had advanced considerably, a detail of which 135 IQ Rodney Alcala wasn't fully aware of. In 2003, DNA gathered from Alcala matched 2 rape and murder crime scenes in Los Angeles. The following year, DNA evidence linked Alcala to 4 additional murders: 18-year-old Jill Barcombe, 27-year-old Georgia Wickstead, 31-year-old Charlotte Lamb, and 21-year-old Jill Parento.
Yeah, this third trial, there's a lot of relative statements that come forward. They are very, very powerful. They also, a shock victim statement provided is the Shapiro family, who initially refused in the first trial to take part. So we're going to play some of these victim relative statements for you now.
Rodney, I hope you don't sleep at night. I hope you have dreams of us coming after you. Because if there is a heaven and a justice, that's what I'm going to do when I die, is haunt your dreams.
And I hope and believe that he will rot in hell. I just pray that I live long enough to watch him be executed. And actually, I think lethal injection is far too humane for anyone like him. Regardless, I'm waiting for the day for him to die. I only wish that I could be the one to administrate the injection.
If there is a hell, I hope Rodney Alcala burns eternally. I wish he would experience the terror he put his victims through. He is truly a devil. He does not belong on this earth.
Most people who are opposed to the death penalty have never had a reason to use it. Rodney James Alcala is a reason to use the death penalty.
My sister died curled in a ball, beaten, breast brutally bitten, raped, head bashed in with a rock, strangled, savagely sodomized, while a few of her fingers touched her privates, bleeding from her anus, and a few drops of blood dripping onto her hand. There's murder, there's rape, there's murder and rape, and there's the unequivocal carnage of a Rodney Alcala-style murder and rape.
Mr. Alcala, I suspect it's a blessing that your mother is not here today to witness this. I feel sure she died with a broken heart.
All 4 of the women were victims of similar break and entry or abduction attacks. All 4 of the women's corpses were posed in a similar way, and earrings belonging to and containing the DNA of Charlotte Lamb were found in a storage locker in Seattle that belonged to Rodney Alcala. These were found alongside hundreds of photos of girls, most of whom were either naked or in swimsuits, some of whom were photographed together with Alcala. Whilst all of these new indictments were put forward to Alcala, he launched 2 separate lawsuits against the state, one for slipping on a wet prison floor without a sign being placed there, and another for the state refusing to provide him with the food that matched his low-fat diet. He also took the time to write and publish a book titled You, the Jury, whilst on death row. It's the entitlement when some of these prisoners go, they're caught and they're like, they no longer have power in the situation. They're trying to reclaim their power by suing the prisons, or I need this and I need that, but they're completely no longer, running the game. A little bit on the locker. It's crazy. He got this locker hired out, and then he tried to send a letter to his sister to basically burn and get rid of anything within the locker. And yeah, that locker was literally a treasure trove for all the evidence against him. He put it all in one place. Again, it makes you question how big his IQ really was. A curious thing about this case I want to mention was that he left these bodies, a lot of them posed, very, when people were to walk in a room or to find the bodies, it was very thought out. It was, legs tied and bound and very sexual and, naked. People had linked the kind of posing of the bodies to the Black Dahlia case. And there is a weird link between the 2 cases. Steve Hodel, he was part of this investigation against Rodney Alcala. Steve Hodel actually had investigated his father, who he believed to be the Black Dahlia killer. And so there was some links between the posing of the bodies, although this was a few decades obviously later. But yeah, it seemed to be, I think Alcala, would have known of that case and maybe used that as inspiration for some of the ways he posed the bodies going forward, and knowing the infamy that would come with as well.
In 2010, 67-year-old Rodney Alcala was made to stand trial for 5 combined murders. This was for the initial murder of 12-year-old Robin Samsoe, as well as the additional 4 that he was indicted for. Bizarrely, Alcala decided to act as his own defense during this 3rd trial. And perhaps more bizarrely, Alcala took the stand in his own defense. So he called himself to the witness box, and for 5 hours he played the roles of both the interrogator and the witness, asking himself questions and addressing himself as Mr. Alcala in a deeper than normal voice. This was obviously as his own lawyer, followed by answering them in his normal voice, which was himself. He did not deny any of the 5 murders during his own defense, and as part of his closing argument, he played the full 18-minute song Alice's Restaurant by folk singer-songwriter Arlo Guthrie, in which the song's protagonist tells a psychiatrist repeatedly that he wants to kill.
The song's about someone who doesn't want to go to war, and he's basically, because he doesn't want to kill at war, so he wants to kill in order to avoid being sent to war. So it's kill to avoid having to kill, which is a very obviously weird message. And a weird thing about that song in particular is 18 minutes and 34 seconds long, and there's a gap in the Watergate tapes essentially, which is exactly the same 18 minutes 34 seconds, and some people believe there's a link to them listening to that or that track being involved in that gap in the Watergate tapes, which is an odd link. But yeah, the song, I've never listened to the song to be honest, but it's a weird, I can't see the relevance of the song really to Alcala's situation.
Yes.
Other than trying to just pick a deep song. It's one of the people at party puts on a song, the first song they put on is something very deep, and you're like, oh, okay, all right, mate.
Unless he's looking, by everything he's decided to do here, unless he's looking for reason of insanity.
Yeah.
Interrogating himself, playing 2 different characters, playing this song.
Yeah. That's not a bad shout.
Who knows? So it might not surprise you to learn that in March of 2010, Rodney Alcala was sentenced to death for a 3rd time. He was later indicted for the additional murders of 23-year-old Cornelia Crilly and 23-year-old Ellen Hover. And there's a lot of reaction to this 3rd death sentence, because at one stage, despite everything we just mentioned, it looked like he might get commuted to a life sentence in prison.
And now you're going to hear from the brother of Robin Samsoe and 2 members of the jury. First, the brother.
Is that 3rd time?
I mean, you broke out into applause. You went, I think you said yes.
And then 3-peat.
You said what?
3-peat. It's our 3rd time. This is 36 people now who's all agreed that this man deserves to die.
Your feelings any different than the last comment?
I'm feeling stronger that because of his own defense, he's eliminated the other procedures that got appealed.
Alcala has also been listed as the most likely person responsible for the June 1977 murder of 28-year-old Christine Ruth Thornton. And yeah, this relates to the treasure chest storage locker that Tom just described. So Christine and her partner had relocated from her family to San Antonio, Texas. However, following their breakup, she was last seen hitchhiking away from Texas and subsequently disappeared without a trace. In 2013, a photograph released by the Huntington Beach Police Department and the New York Police Department depicted a dark-haired woman on a motorcycle wearing a yellow shirt. She was actually identified by her sister to have been Christine Ruth Thornton. This photo was in the possession and likely taken by Rodney Alcala. In 1982, her remains were discovered in Streetwater County, Wyoming, along Interstate 80. But it wasn't until 2015 that through DNA testing and using samples provided by Thornton's family, it was able to confirm her true identity. Now, Rodney Alcala acknowledged that he took the photograph of Thornton, but denied being responsible for her death. And she was actually, it turned out, approximately 6 months pregnant at the time that she was murdered. Thornton is recognized as the first alleged murder victim associated with the Alcala photographs that were eventually released in 2010. There's this website I found, I think it's part of CBS News, that basically explore, they call it Rodney Alcala's secret photos, and they explore all of the released photos. So I'll pop a link to that in our Facebook group. And yeah, many other murders are suspected of unidentified women in this collection of several hundred photos. When the Christine Ruth Thornton allegation was put forward to Alcala at 73 years old, he was reportedly too unwell to travel from California to Wyoming to face trial on the new murder charges. A similar situation occurred with the October 1977 murder of 19-year-old Pamela Jean Lamson, who went missing after traveling to Fisherman's Wharf in San Francisco to meet a man who had offered to take her photo. Her lifeless and mutilated body was later discovered in Marin County, close to a hiking trail. Despite the absence of fingerprints or viable DNA evidence, authorities did not file charges. However, they did assert that there was enough evidence to lead them to believe that Rodney Alcala was also responsible for this murder. Alcala has also been considered a person of interest in more than a dozen other missing persons or unsolved murder cases, including both male and female victims. And yeah, as I said, there's a link on a CBS website called Rodney Alcala's Secret Photos. I'll place that in our Facebook group. Though he was only convicted of 7 murders, he's believed to have been responsible for between 50 and 130 murders across the US and possibly even in Europe, which, if they were able to conclusively link that to him, would make him one of the most prolific serial killers in history. In the storage locker in Seattle, 120 of the photos that were found have been publicly released with the hopes that the subjects will come forward and identify themselves. Approximately 900 other sexually explicit photos still haven't been released, including many photos in which the women and young girls are nude, but which have been censored. There's also, in a lot of these photos, Rodney is posing with them, or in some of them at least. At 1:43 a.m. on the 24th of July 2021, exactly 42 years after he was first apprehended for the murder of 12-year-old Robin Sanso, 77-year-old Rodney Alcala died of a heart attack at an unnamed hospital in Kings County, California. So there you have it. That was the case of Rodney Alcala, the dating game killer.
And guys, as I posted on some of our socials, we wanted to look to try and get you guys back involved with the case. We love a bit of audience participation. I posted a little post on our Facebook and over on our website asking for you guys to send us some spooky stories, and I've been absolutely blown away by all the stories that have come in. So we're going to read a few now, and it's going to be a regular occurrence. So I'm not going to go through all of them in one go. And if you were inspired and you've got any spooky little creepy stories, obviously, ideally a bit lighthearted. This is supposed to be the palate cleanser at the end of the episode, but something a bit, mysterious. Feel free to send your stories over to hello@icmap.co.uk with the subject spooky stories, and that just means that the boys, they're not going to read them, and they can learn about the story as we go. But this is the first time we're going to be doing it. Very excited. Producer Dan has made us a jingle, so Producer Dan, take it away.
Hit it.
Welcome to Spooky Corner.
Spooky Corner.
There you go. Ooh. Spooky Corner. So this is the corner of the show where we read through some of your stories. I do like the ones where they tell a story. They kind of go through it and it's written like a story. So just a little side note for anyone who is going to write in. So this one comes through and it goes like this. It's, hello gentlemen, it's Erica here and this is my creepy story. I was around 6 years old and we lived in a big blue house in Nebraska. Ooh. My mother had noticed I was talking to someone who wasn't there, and of course she assumed I had an imaginary friend. That is, until I told her about my friend's family, and how they all died in a fire. Ooh. Which is already spooky. My mum was already a believer in ghosts, so out of curiosity and maybe a little concern, she looked up the history of our home. She found nothing at first, no deaths in the house, gruesome or otherwise, but then she found a very chilling nugget of information about the actual land the house was on. There was a house before our house. It burned down, with the family dying inside.
Fucking hell.
P.S. I love this idea and can't wait to tune into the episode you pulled together. I've actually had many similar experiences throughout my life, things that I can't find any acceptable logic behind, so I'm curious to hear about anyone else's spooky memories. Thank you very much for that, Erica. Yeah, that did send a chill down my spine. I think, especially when kids talk about, it's a violent death as well. So like that kind of like, they're not making it feels like a weird thing for a kid to make up. And yeah, the link there is very spooky. So thank you for that, Erica. The next one is, hi guys, first and foremost, just to clarify, this is a great start to an email, one of the best email starts.
Oh, is this the one done screenshot?
Yeah.
Great.
So this is from Megan. Hey guys, first and foremost, just to clarify, none of my family agree with anything that was done by the Nazis during the reign of Hitler.
Secondly, don't need to clarify that.
Secondly, love the podcast. Heirloom story below. So my granny's dad was a soldier during World War II. He was involved particularly at the end of the war, and supposedly as a family we owned a piece of Hitler's infamous marble table, which was smashed when his bunker was stormed. It matches pretty well to the photos, and my great-granddad never liked to talk much about the war, so I can't imagine he fabricated the story, although we haven't had it verified. I'm not even sure how you would do that. Anyway, said chunk of marble sits in the glass cabinet in my granny and granddad's front room next to the crystal decanter that was looted and brought back from my granny's mum. Amazingly, my granddad survived everything, lived a long and full life despite making it back with no helmet and only the marble chunk and decanter. Not spooky as such, but definitely weird. Keep doing what you're doing, Megan.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I just love these little peaks.
Just to clarify though, he did fight for the Allies, right? Is that?
Well, he's smashing the table.
Yeah, that could have been German looters. Next one?
Yeah.
Hang on, sorry. I wonder, does Nazi memorabilia have any sort of value? It must do, right?
I told you that story, didn't I, when I went into that antiques shop in Yorkshire? I got called a wet wipe for feeling sick.
I was going to say,
there was one guy that said, "Oh, how wet are you?" Basically, yeah, right in the back of this really amazing antiques store in the middle of Yorkshire, there was a collection. It looked like it was 2 or 3 cabinets full of Nazi stuff. It was quite pricey and made my stomach turn when I saw it. Don't mind if that's wet. Rather be wet than, he knows.
A little bit. Anyway, this one here is from Helen, and it goes like this. Hey guys, I read your email and thought I'd share this one. Once upon a time, way back in the early 90s, school was out for summer. The weather glorious, and my cousin and I were on a family walk across the Yorkshire moors. As usual, we lagged behind telling stupid stories and looking for ladybirds, when my cousin stopped mid-sentence. We saw what appeared to be a youngish man pacing up and down not far from us. He was looking down the whole time while he paced, as though he was looking for something. He was completely oblivious to our presence despite us literally staring right at him. He was dressed in very old looking but smart clothes, almost like a uniform, but I can't say. What freaked us the hell out was that you couldn't see his feet, and in that grass you would have been able to. Rooted to the spot, we continued to watch until our grandma called us to hurry up. Looking around after our man had vanished, there was no one there. We raced up to rejoin everyone. Still shaking, we made a pact not to tell anyone. I incorporated the incident into a Halloween writing competition at school that year and won. No one knowing that it was based on a real experience. Fast forward 30 plus years, and while I don't believe in spooks, it really bothers me as to why I can't come up with a logical explanation as to what we saw. We were surrounded by open moorland. The remaining family never acknowledged they'd never seen a man there, and they would have seen him. There was nowhere he could have gone to so quickly as to completely disappear. It didn't make sense. Years later, I read up on the area in the local library just to see if there's anything of significance and for some kind of closure maybe, but as far as I could see, it had always been just farmland. the mystery remains. And this is from Chop Suey Lang, who's also part of the cult, so big thank you to Helen for that. P.S. I don't object to you using my name, and to Ben, thank you for the handwritten note of thanks that came with the keyring that I ordered. The personal touch made my day.
Oh, thanks.
Lovely.
I don't believe in spooks either. I was convinced that was going to link to a case we've covered, like early on just then. I was so convinced, but it didn't. So that's fine.
So that's just a few little. We've had lots of stories, some longer ones. Got loads of great ones still to delve into. Don't feel disheartened if your story hasn't been read out. We will get through as many as possible, but do understand that we've had a lot through as well, so we might not be able to get through every single one. But absolutely love reading them. It's been great, and yeah, keep them coming. Send an email to hello@icmap.co.uk with the subject header being spooky stories.
Well, thank you for that, Tom, and thank you everyone for their lovely contributions. Yeah, I'm intrigued to hear some more. So there you have it, guys. That was the episode of Rodney Alcala, the dating game killer. We are a third of the way through the series, absolutely storming through right now. We hope you guys are enjoying it. If you just can't wait until next week's episode, then why not consider having a look at some of our bonus content? We, at the time of recording, have almost 200 additional completely exclusive episodes available to you either via our website in video and audio form, or you can unlock it via Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. Just click the links that you can see and unlock the content. And we also do case suggestions over there. We've covered a lot of really fascinating cases recently. So why not consider that if you just can't wait until next week? Any support is massively appreciated.
And can I just add, Ben, if you're not too bothered about the extra content and you're listening on Spotify right now or watching on YouTube right now, if you've made it to the end, please consider giving us a like on YouTube. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe, because I know a lot of you aren't who watch us. And if you're on Spotify or Apple, give us a rating, a good one though, please. Thank you. It makes a massive difference.
Thank you so much, guys. Yeah, we wouldn't be here without you, and we very much do appreciate it. And we're excited to bring you the next episode. It's a big case, and this series is full of big cases. So stay tuned. There's lots more to come. And until next time, like we always say,
it's time for the cryptic clue.
Oh yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Oh, it's fine. I forgot as well.
Benjamin Carter's cryptic clues. Everyone gather round for some clues that can be quite cryptic, but he's going to give them to you anyway. Hope you can figure them out.
So, hello everyone.
So try to get away from it.
A real struggle this series. Yeah, who knows what Series 12 will bring. But yeah, this was probably the most I've struggled ever, and we're still struggling for other titles for it as well. But it's a fascinating case, one that a lot of people want to see and hear. This was a struggle though. The cryptic clue for next week's episode is, that state in America is a bit Scottish coloured. That state in America is a bit Scottish coloured.
This is actually one of your better ones, to be fair.
Yeah, it's doable, this one.
Thank you. It was, really danced around it a bit and then found a way.
It's like, rather than scraping the barrel, it's like an inch up.
Yeah. Progress.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So there you go. And yeah, we're very excited to bring that case to you next week.
Yeah, and back to what I was saying, guys, without you, we couldn't do it. So thank you so much for all your support. And like we always say,
we say this all the time.
Keep doing what you're doing.
Unless it's... there's a lot, isn't there? There's a real lot. It's been a journey. Unless it's representing your... Well, don't do any of that beforehand, but yeah. Don't waste everyone's time. Don't make any songs over 4 minutes, please.
Well...
5 minutes. That's fair.
There's some great 10-minute songs.
Okay.
Free Bird.
Yeah, but just don't play that as your closing argument.
Unless it slaps.
Unless it, then if it slaps,
it might win the case.
If your surname is Burger, you don't have to use the fries bit. You don't have to. Come up with something that slaps.
See you later, guys. All the best. Take care of yourself.
Bye-bye.